I've operated cremation equipment for 16 years. Started at Willamette Valley Memorial in Eugene right after my certification. It's technical work, precise work. You monitor temperatures, maintain equipment, follow strict protocols. The state regulates everything: how hot the retort burns, how long, what you can and cannot do. Bodies burn at predictable rates. Bone density, body mass, moisture content. You learn to calculate timing. An average cremation takes 2 to 3 hours at 1700 degrees. Sometimes more, sometimes less. But it's consistent, reliable, scientific. Until Vincent Holloway. The paperwork came through on a Thursday morning in late November. Standard death certificate, natural causes, heart failure. Vincent Holloway, age 73. No autopsy required. No complications. The funeral home delivered him that afternoon in a standard cremation container, cardboard, combustible, regulation compliant. I scheduled him for the evening shift. We had 2 other cremations that day. Both went normally. By 8 p.m., I was ready to process Mr. Holloway. I checked the retort. Preheated to operating temperature, 1700 degrees Fahrenheit. The ceramic chamber glowed orange through the viewing port. Everything nominal. I positioned the container on the loading door. Pressed the sequence. The hydraulics engaged. The door opened. The container slid inside. I closed the door, locked it, activated the burners. Through the viewing port, I watched the cardboard ignite. Standard. The flames spread across the container, yellow-orange, hot, consuming. Then they dimmed. Not slowly, suddenly. Like someone had turned down a dimmer switch. The bright orange flames dulled to blue, then almost went out completely. I checked the temperature gauge. 1700 degrees, steady. But the flames inside looked weak, struggling. I increased the gas flow. The burners responded. I heard them roar louder, felt the heat increase. The temperature gauge climbed to 1800. But the flames stayed dim, blue, barely touching the container. I've processed over 4,000 cremations. I've never seen flames behave like this. Fire needs fuel, oxygen, heat. All 3 were present. The flames should have been consuming everything. Instead, they looked like they were being pushed back, suppressed. Like something inside that chamber was fighting them. The temperature in the control room dropped. I felt it immediately. My breath fogged. I looked at the thermostat, 68 degrees. Normal. But I could see my breath. I walked to the viewing port. Put my hand near the glass. It was cold. Not warm, not hot. Cold. Like ice. That's impossible. The retort runs at 1700 degrees. The observation glass is triple-layered ceramic. It should be radiating heat, should be too hot to touch. But frost was forming on the inside surface. I watched it spread. Delicate crystalline patterns growing across the glass. In a chamber burning at 1800 degrees, I shut down the burners. Hit the emergency stop. The flames died immediately. The hydraulics engaged. The door opened. Cold air poured out. Not hot. Cold. Like opening a freezer. Steam billowed into the control room, condensation from the temperature difference. The container sat on the loading tray. Partially burned. The cardboard blackened and charred around the edges, but largely intact. And inside, Vincent Holloway looked untouched. His body hadn't burned, hadn't even been damaged by the heat. His skin looked normal, his hair unsinged, his clothing, a simple hospital gown, not even scorched. I closed the door, checked the equipment, ran diagnostics. Everything showed normal. Gas pressure good, temperature sensors calibrated, burner function optimal. I called my supervisor. A man named Dale Pritchard, 28 years in the business. He answered on the second ring. "We have a problem," I said. "The Holloway cremation failed." "Equipment malfunction?" "No, equipment's fine. The body won't burn." Silence. Then, "What do you mean, won't burn?" "I mean the flames dimmed. The chamber went cold. Frost formed on the observation glass." "That's not possible. I'm looking at it right now." Dale arrived 30 minutes later. I showed him everything. The frost on the glass, still visible, though melting now that the burners were off. The partially burned container, the intact body. He examined Vincent Holloway through the viewing port. Checked the equipment. Ran the same diagnostics I had. "Try again," he said finally. "Sometimes you get moisture issues, body fat content, things that interfere with combustion. Give it another go." I repositioned the container, closed the door, activated the burners. The same thing happened. Flames ignited, burned normally for maybe 30 seconds, then dimmed to weak blue flickers. Temperature gauge read 1800 degrees, but the flames looked like they were dying. And the cold came back, stronger this time. The control room temperature dropped so fast, I could see frost forming on the equipment, on the computer monitors, on the metal surfaces. Dale stood beside me, watching, his breath fogging in the freezing air. "Shut it down," he said quietly. I did. Emergency stop. Door open. Cold air pouring out again. Vincent Holloway still intact, still untouched. Like the fire couldn't reach him. Dale pulled out his phone, called someone, spoke in low tones, hung up. "We're done for tonight," he said. "We'll try again tomorrow morning, first thing." "What's happening?" "I don't know. But this isn't the first time." "You've seen this before?" He didn't answer directly, just looked at the viewing port, at Vincent Holloway's body inside. "Some bodies resist. I don't know why. I don't know how. But sometimes they resist." We locked up. Left Vincent Holloway in the retort. Turned off the cooling systems to let the chamber return to room temperature overnight. I went home. Couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about those flames. The way they dimmed. The cold. The frost in an 1800-degree chamber. I researched Vincent Holloway, found his obituary online. Born 1951, died November 2024, survived by 2 daughters, worked as an accountant, member of Sacred Heart Catholic Church. Nothing unusual, nothing that explained what I'd witnessed. But there was a photo. Vincent in his 60s, smiling, standing outside a church, and around his neck, visible in the photo, a silver chain. A crucifix. I arrived at the crematorium at 6 a.m. Dale was already there. We prepared the retort, preheated it, everything by the book. At 7 a.m., with the sun just coming up, we tried again. I activated the burners, watched through the viewing port. The flames ignited, bright, hot, orange. And this time they didn't dim, they burned, consumed. The container caught immediately. The fire spread. Normal combustion, normal temperature, normal everything. The cold didn't come back. The frost didn't form. The flames did exactly what they were supposed to do. 2 hours and 40 minutes later, the cremation was complete. Standard timing, standard process. Like nothing had been wrong. I opened the retort, used the rake to pull the remains onto the cooling tray. Bone fragments, ash, everything you'd expect. But something caught the light, something that didn't belong. I leaned closer, used the rake to move the ash aside. A hand, intact, unburned. Still complete with skin and tissue. The fingers curled, clutching something, a rosary, wooden beads, a silver crucifix, held in the unburned hand like Vincent Holloway was still praying. I stepped back. My hands were shaking. "Dale, you need to see this." He came over, looked at what I'd found. His face went very pale. "Check the personal effects inventory," he said. I pulled up the paperwork, read through the list of items that came with Vincent Holloway's body. Watch, removed. Wedding ring, removed. Hospital gown, present. No other items listed. No rosary. "Where did this come from?" I asked. Dale stared at the unburned hand, at the rosary clutched in the fingers. "He brought it himself." "That's not possible. We inventory everything. The funeral home strips the body of all personal items before delivery. That's protocol. Then how is it here?" I didn't have an answer, because there was no answer that made sense. The rosary wasn't listed, wasn't documented, shouldn't exist. But Vincent Holloway was holding it. His hand unburned in a retort that had consumed everything else at 1700 degrees. Dale made calls, contacted the funeral home. They confirmed no rosary had been with the body. Confirmed they'd followed protocol, removed all jewelry and personal items. We contacted Vincent's daughters, asked about the rosary. They said their father had been buried with his mother's rosary 30 years ago, had placed it in her casket at her funeral, hadn't owned one since. His mother's rosary, buried in 1994, in a grave 300 miles away. But here it was, in Vincent Holloway's hand, unburned, impossible. I processed the remains, separated the bone fragments from the ash, ground them to consistent texture per protocol. Placed them in the urn the family had selected. But the hand, the unburned hand, I photographed it, documented it, then cremated it separately, alone, with witnesses. It burned normally. No resistance, no cold, no frost, just standard combustion. 2 hours, 1700 degrees. The rosary burned too, wood and silver turning to ash, like whatever had been protecting it was gone. Dale retired 3 months later. Didn't give much notice. Just said he was done. Said 16 years was long enough for him. I didn't argue. Didn't ask why. I understood. Because some things you see in this job stay with you. Some bodies don't burn the way they should. Some resist, fight back, hold on to something even after death. Vincent Holloway clutched his mother's rosary. A rosary buried 3 decades ago. A rosary that somehow found its way back to him. That protected him, even from fire, until dawn. Until whatever he was waiting for was finished. I still operate the crematorium, still process bodies, still follow protocol. But now I watch more carefully during night cremations. Watch for flames that dim, for cold that shouldn't exist, for frost forming on glass that should be radiating heat. Because I understand now that death isn't always final. That some bonds don't break. That some promises, even ones made 30 years ago when you place a rosary in your mother's casket, still hold. And that sometimes, when you die holding on to something important enough, you don't let go. Not until you're ready. Not until the sun comes up and whatever you were holding on to finally finds peace. I found out later from one of Vincent's daughters that he'd promised his mother he'd see her again. That he'd told her at her deathbed. That he'd hold her rosary when his time came. That he'd bring it with him. She'd laughed. Said that's not how it works. Said the rosary would stay with her. But promises have weight. Even impossible ones. Especially impossible ones. And Vincent Holloway kept his promise. Somehow. Impossibly. He brought his mother's rosary with him when he died. Held it tight. Wouldn't let go. Wouldn't let anything. Not fire, Not protocol, not the laws of physics. Take it from him until he was ready. Until dawn. Until peace. I've worked at Cascade Memorial Crematory in Portland for 7 years. It's a small operation. Just me and the owner, a man named Roger Brennan. I handle the technical side, equipment maintenance, temperature monitoring, processing. Roger deals with families, paperwork, logistics. We average 8 to 10 cremations a week. Steady work, quiet work. The kind of work where nothing surprises you anymore. Until April 19th. The body came in that Tuesday morning. Standard transfer from a local funeral home. The deceased was a woman named Patricia Kemp, age 68, died of complications from pneumonia. The paperwork was complete. Medical examiner had signed off. Family had approved cremation. Everything routine. I scheduled her for early afternoon. We had 2 other cremations that day, but Patricia was priority. The family wanted the ashes by Thursday for a memorial service. I preheated the retort at noon. By 1 p.m., the chamber had reached operating temperature, 1,600 degrees Fahrenheit. The ceramic walls glowed orange through the viewing port. Standard. Expected. I positioned Patricia's container on the loading mechanism. Pressed the sequence. The hydraulics hummed. The door opened. The container slid inside. I closed the door, locked it, activated the primary burners. Through the viewing port, I watched the combustion begin. The cardboard ignited. Flames spread. Yellow-orange, consuming. Everything proceeding normally. I returned to the control station. That's where I monitor everything. Temperature, gas flow, combustion efficiency. We have safety protocols, state regulations. You don't just load a body and walk away. You watch. You document. The control station has 3 monitors. The first shows temperature and pressure readings. The second displays gas flow and burner status. The third is the thermal camera. That's the one that shows you what's actually happening inside the chamber. It's an infrared system, reads heat signatures, shows you the combustion pattern in real time, helps you verify complete and efficient cremation. Required equipment, expensive equipment. Roger spent $15,000 on that camera system 3 years ago. I glanced at the thermal monitor 40 minutes into the cremation. Standard check. Just verifying the combustion pattern looked normal. The screen showed the expected heat signature. Bright white-yellow core where the body was. Orange surrounding it. Red at the edges. Normal gradient. Normal distribution. Then the pattern changed. The white-yellow core separated, divided into distinct shapes. 2 bright spots at the top, a vertical line below them, a curved line at the bottom. Eyes, nose, mouth, a face, clear as anything, staring directly at the camera. Not a vague pattern, not a trick of light and shadow. A face, with features, with definition. Looking at me through the thermal camera from inside a 1,600-degree chamber. I stood up, stepped closer to the monitor. The face stayed stable, didn't shift, didn't blur, just stared. The eyes, 2 bright white spots, seemed to track my movement. My heart was pounding. I reached for the radio to call Roger. Then the face moved. The mouth, that curved line of heat, opened, widened, like it was smiling, like it was pleased, I'd noticed. The thermal camera went black. Complete failure. The screen showed no signal in white letters. The temperature readouts on the other monitors were fine. The gas flow normal. Everything functional except the thermal camera. I checked the connections, rebooted the system. Nothing. The camera was dead. I went to the viewing port, looked through the thick ceramic glass. Inside, the cremation continued normally. Flames consuming. Orange glow. Standard combustion pattern. Nothing visible that looked like a face. But the thermal camera had showed me something. Something that couldn't exist. A face made of heat, looking at me, smiling. I logged the camera failure, made a note to call the equipment service company. Tried to focus on the other monitors, temperature steady, gas flow normal, everything proceeding as expected. But I kept thinking about that face, about how clear it had been, about how it had moved, smiled. The cremation cycle completed at 3:17 p.m. 2 hours and 17 minutes. Standard timing. I let the chamber cool for 20 minutes, then opened the door. The heat sensors, 3 of them mounted inside the retort, were dead. Their LED indicators dark, not glowing, not functioning, like they'd been burned out. But these sensors are rated to 1800 degrees. They're designed to withstand the exact environment they're in. I made a note. Another equipment failure. 2 in one day. Unusual, but not impossible. Electronics fail. Components degrade. It happens. I used the rake to pull the remains onto the cooling tray. Bone fragments, ash, everything you'd expect from a completed cremation. I let them cool for another 30 minutes, then began processing. That's when I saw it. The ash wasn't distributed randomly like it usually is. It had formed a pattern, not a vague shape, not something you had to squint at and imagine. A clear, distinct pattern. A smile, curved, wide, like someone grinning. The darker ash formed the outline. The lighter ash filled the space. A smile, maybe 8 inches across, formed naturally in the remains. Impossible, but there. I stared at it for maybe 5 minutes, just looking, trying to make it into something else, trying to convince myself it was random. Coincidence. Pattern recognition doing what human brains do, finding faces in clouds, seeing meaning in chaos. But it wasn't random. It was too clear, too deliberate, too similar to what I'd seen on the thermal camera. That smiling mouth, opening, widening. I took a photo with my phone, documented it, then disturbed the ash. Broke up the pattern, started the processing, separating bone fragments, grinding them to consistent texture per protocol. My hands were shaking. I couldn't stop thinking about the thermal camera, about that face watching me, about the smile. Roger came in around 4, asked how the day went. Fine, I said. Thermal camera failed during the Kemp cremation. Heat sensors too. Both at once? Yeah. He frowned. That's expensive. I'll call service tomorrow. He looked at me. You okay? You look pale. I wanted to tell him what I'd seen, the face, the smile in the ashes. But what would I say? That a thermal camera showed me something impossible? That ash formed a pattern that couldn't form naturally? I'm fine, I said. Just tired. He nodded. Left. I finished processing Patricia Kemp's remains. Placed them in the urn the family had selected. Cleaned the equipment. Locked up. But I couldn't leave. I went back to the control station. Tried to recover the thermal camera footage. We record everything. State requirement. All cremations documented from start to finish. The file was corrupted. 40 minutes of footage from Patricia Kemp's cremation. Gone. Unrecoverable. Just blank data. Like it had never been recorded. I sat there in the empty crematorium, looking at the dead thermal camera, at the corrupted file, at the photo on my phone showing that smile in the ashes. And I understood something. Patricia Kemp had seen me. Not her body, Not random heat patterns. Her. Some part of her that remained conscious, that existed in the flames, that formed itself into a face on the thermal camera and looked directly at me and smiled. Because she knew I could see her, knew I was watching, knew that for those 40 minutes, she wasn't alone in that chamber. I went home. Didn't sleep. Just lay in bed thinking about what happens during cremation, about consciousness, about whether something persists at 1600 degrees, about whether the dead are aware during those 2 hours while their bodies burn. The next morning I called Roger, told him I quit. He tried to talk me out of it, asked what happened, asked if it was the equipment failures. I didn't tell him the truth. Just said I needed a change, needed different work. He was disappointed but understood. Said he'd give me a good reference, said I could come back if I changed my mind. But I won't go back. Because I can't unsee that face. Can't forget the way it looked at me, the way it smiled. Can't stop wondering about all the other cremations I've done. 7 years, hundreds of bodies. And maybe all of them were conscious. Maybe all of them were aware. Maybe they all saw me watching through the viewing port and couldn't tell me. Couldn't form a face on the thermal camera. Couldn't smile in the ashes. Maybe Patricia Kemp was the only one strong enough. The only one who could reach through the fire and say, I'm here. I'm still here. I see you seeing me. I work at a hardware store now. Sell garden supplies and paint. Normal work. Work where nothing watches you, nothing smiles at you from places where nothing should be able to smile. But sometimes I think about Patricia Kemp, about what she wanted, about whether that smile was friendly or something else, about whether she was grateful to be seen or angry about what was happening to her. I researched her obituary, found out she'd been a photographer, spent 40 years taking portraits, thousands of faces, thousands of people looking at her through a camera lens while she looked back at them. Maybe that's why she could do it. Maybe she understood cameras, understood lenses, understood how to make herself visible even when she shouldn't be. Or maybe everyone can do it. Maybe they're all there, all conscious, all watching us from inside the flames. And we just don't have the right equipment to see them. Don't have the sensitivity. Don't pay close enough attention. The service company came out 2 days after I quit. Roger told me later they couldn't explain the failures. Said the thermal camera was fried from the inside out. Said the heat sensors had experienced simultaneous catastrophic failure. Said it shouldn't have happened. Said the equipment had been functioning perfectly that morning. Said it was like something had burned them out. Deliberately. From inside the retort. Roger hired a new tech, a younger guy, eager, experienced. He's been there 3 weeks now. I wonder if he watches the thermal camera. I wonder if he'll see a face someday. I wonder if he'll recognize it for what it is, or if he'll do what I should have done. What any rational person would do, convince himself it was nothing. Equipment malfunction, random pattern, coincidence. Keep working, keep processing, keep watching bodies burn, and never admit, not even to himself, that sometimes they watch back, that sometimes they smile, that sometimes they want you to know they're still there. Still conscious, still aware while the fire consumes them. Still themselves, right up until the end, and maybe even after.